mic. Headphones sound nice. 1 2 1 2. All right, let's get to it, man.
Huh. Yeah. Let's go.
Voice junkie.
Huh. Yeah.
Voice junkie.
Let's go.
Can't call it off now, nigga. Gave you what you wanted. Better build the ark, nigga. I'm about to flood it. And when them blicky spark, just know you had it coming. You knew you had it coming. Always kept it 100. Can't call it off now, nigga. Gave you what you wanted. Better build the ark, nigga. I'm about to flood it. And when them blicky spark, just know you had it coming. You knew you had it.
Yeah. Gotta get it right. All night, flipping off the top of the dome, nigga. First of all, it is political season. Politics, baby. Politics is one of the reasons why I founded this podcast in the first place. It was because it was about getting out a message to places and people that normally don't get the right message. This is why I created this podcast. Now, as far as the politics situation today, the two candidates running today, Kamala Harris, Donald J. Trump. I mean, as Cody Rhodes would say, what do you want to talk about? First and foremost, misinformation is running rampant in this country. It is running amok, as the OGs would say. You have so many portals out there in the universe that are giving you all of this poor information. You got the TikToks of the world. You got the X's, formerly Twitter. You got Facebook. You have all of these different ways of means when it comes to how to get your information. And a lot of it isn't fact-based. A lot of it isn't checked. In the case of Twitter, Elon Musk owns it now. It's one of the reasons why I got my ass off of that platform several months back, because there's really no direction in it. If you're a right-wing nut job who wants to just have quote-unquote uncensored point of view about the world, then X is for you. But if you have any sense or any purpose in the world, then X isn't where you should be. I think that Elon Musk is just one of those things. He's like a plague. You know, you need him, and so you can't really get rid of him. So it's one of those things you have to live with, unfortunately, because he's so important. He does so many things in the world, thanks to our government not stepping up and doing the things that they need to do. It's allowed billionaires like Elon Musk to garner up government contracts for things like the war out there in Ukraine when it comes to the satellites and getting the information out and to the soldiers. All those types of things. People don't know this, but yeah, that's where we are. Where billionaires pretty much run every goddamn thing. It's the misinformation campaigns, you name it. I've been kind of putting politics to the background for a little bit because honestly, it's mentally draining to try to educate people who don't really who don't know shit from shit, And I'm not that type of person who tries to take moral high grounds or try to tell people how to live their lives. That's just not how that's not how I flow. That's not how I vibe. But when you start to run into people with their viewpoints, and when you try to tune yourself out and put yourself in a bubble, removed away from all of the nonsense, and just try to shield yourself from it because you're just tired of it or for whatever reasons, you always get confronted with it. It was a lesson for me, like, hey, stop trying to run from it and just start to confront it head on again. But I'll get to, that revelation in a second. But what I'm trying to say is that, I ran into some young dude, man. He was, a black kid, young, and he don't know shit from shit, man. He believed in every single wild right-wing conspiracy theory you can think of, down to the abortion conspiracy theory as far as conception and you name it, the whole thing, and how abortions are happening past 3 months and all the whole jazz. You get what I'm saying? All the Drudge Report shit, all the, Charlie Kirk type garbage that you would hear, or whatever right-wing portal that you get your garbage from. He was all into that. And it shocked me because I'm like, man, you put off this image as someone who's like from the street and all of this and all of that, but you have these crazy ass wild beliefs and all of this propaganda that's been fed to you, like as if you were from. What I realized was there was nothing different from this young 23-year-old black kid from Mount Vernon compared to the white, poor Appalachian resident in West Virginia or whatnot, or wherever. You can think of the most far backwood place you can think of. The ideologies are the same. The poison is the goddamn propaganda, the misinformation. And the media, the cable news media, which I've stopped watching consistently for almost 20 years, hasn't fixed it. And is still doing a terrible job at fixing it. We've gotten to this place because people just don't trust media in general. They've lost their faith in media. It's the media's fault because they're not what they're supposed to be. They're not playing the parts that they're portraying. I tell people this all the time, man. Stop listening to all that garbage. I don't care if it's from MSNBC, CNN, Fox. They're all garbage. They're all incentivized to feed you the propaganda they need to feed you. That also, in turns, benefits their advertisers, their large money donors, the people that really run the show. Now, I've been saying this for years now. If you don't know that, and this is your first time listening to me, go back to some of the older episodes about, and it's not hard to, some of the government episodes that I've had is pretty much in the title, and the title speaks for itself. But I've been on this corruption train for a while when it comes to trying to educate people about how the system is really run. It's not if you got an R on your chest or a D on your chest. They're both bought by the same people. They both share the same interests. While you're having all this tribalism, all these stupid culture wars, they're still robbing you fucking blind, giving you nothing in return. Yeah, by all means, keep worrying about, what gender is using what bathroom, or argue about what gender is playing what role for Hollywood, or God knows what else. None of that shit makes a difference. It's all a fucking distraction from what's happening, which is the government, those who run the government, sucking out the equity of the country and giving them to themselves and not giving you a damn dime back in return. It's a reason why we don't have health care. It's a reason why we don't have so many fundamental things that the rest of the major industrial countries around the world have. It has nothing to do with, it's Democrat this or Republican that. They both haven't delivered. That's why I'm not registered to either one of those fucking parties. And I haven't been. I had one stretch where I had to register once as a Democrat to vote for Bernie Sanders during the primary because I live in a closed primary state. So you can't vote how you want here. You have to vote two parties. Because of the goddamn system, the corruption of the system allows just a two-party system. So you have to register for one or the other if you want to make an impact on an election. However, I got to the point where I was like, man, it was a special moment for me to do that. And I didn't want to do it at the time. But you know what? I was like, I support Bernie so much. I want him to fucking beat Hillary Clinton. But little did I know, there was a lot of other forces at play that wasn't going to allow Bernie to win. Even if he tried harder, he wasn't going to win because of, what was happening behind the scenes. But the point I'm trying to make is I've always known that a two-party system has always been detrimental to us, detrimental to society in general, because we're not able to really get what we need done because of, the money in politics, etc. But the misinformation is surprising, man. I'm surprised in people that I'm running to in my everyday life, whether it's at work or whether it's friends that I know, and you get into a conversation about politics or who they look up to or whatnot, and you just say to yourself, you scratch your head and say, oh my God, they got you too? You believe this shit too? Please tell me you don't believe in this garbage that you're saying to me right now. I mean, this is literally going through my brain as I'm hearing a lot of this information through some of these people that I thought highly of. And it just tells you, yo, misinformation, propaganda is really, really a big thing in today's society. It's not just the Republicans, the Democrats as well. You know, the Democrats for so long hyped how healthy, how great, how energetic Joe Biden was for over a year. But I've seen it with my own two eyes and said, this dude is washed. He's not going to even make it probably to the end of his term before we realize, we need to switch course. He was never the right choice, but the donors chose him, and that's what we had. We couldn't go back to the orange clown man-child. We had to go for in a new direction. But Joe Biden health has been declining for years. We've seen it with our own two eyes. And all they did, the Democrats, was brainwash their party, brainwash millions of voters into believing that it was nothing wrong with Joe Biden. And that anybody who opposed Joe Biden, anybody who even questioned Joe Biden, was an enemy of Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. That's how they spent it. For several months, that's how they spent it. And you have older voters who watch that shit on MSNBC, CNN, all these other places that have old surrogates that worked in Obama's party or Clinton's party or Biden's party or whatnot. They all share the same air. They all share the same views. It's just a rotation. It's a rotating door, man. So of course they was gonna tell us, not tell us the truth and say, oh, nothing's wrong with Biden, when clearly our own two eyes, for people who follow politics like me, I seen it a year ago almost. Last November, when I cut my podcast about when he had his birthday, and I said, this dude is washed and all this, like, it was obvious to the eyes, but they kept hiding it. No different than what they did with Dianne Feinstein. And, it was like Weekend at Bernie's with her until the end. They was rolling her out in a wheelchair and she didn't know where the fuck she was for years until she finally passed away. These people don't care, man. They don't care. They don't want to give up power. And that's why you get these misinformation campaigns. You know what I'm saying? They all, the people at the top are at the top for a reason. And a lot of these people that pretend to be enemies aren't really enemies. They all have a shared interest. So stop believing in some garbage about, if you're going to believe in something, at least do some goddamn research. Go outside of the channels that you've been fed and do some real research. But we're not getting that with people. People are just on this crazy misinformation rage kicker, and it's hard to reach people once they've been brainwashed for a few years. Trump was president for a few years, and for these few years, the Democrats did a horrible job of representing the truth. So you got a bunch of people who don't know nothing. They don't know about the election scheme where Donald Trump hired fake electors to help overturn the election, because his actual electors, a lot of them resigned because they didn't want to break the fucking law. A lot of people don't know that. This is stuff that's being under investigation now with Jack Smith, and he brought out charges just finally recently about this because he had to alter his charges because of the stupid decision by the Supreme Court, which made presidents emperors, basically. So there's so many things, so many moving parts happening that's not being explained to people. And then it's hard for people to take any type of information outside of what they know because they don't really trust anything outside of what they know. So where does that leave us? It leaves us in a bit of a quandary, right? The misinformation has been disappointing. It's kind of inspired me to come back and turn this microphone back on, because I'm like, man, I underestimated how bad it is as far as the misinformation is concerned. The propaganda is so bad that it's like, man, I have to, it's like my duty to come out here and try to say something and contribute truth to the world and help fight the good fight, because right now the people that's on the right side of this is not winning. The bad folks with the bad information is winning right now. So I need to get up on my horse and start being motivated enough to come back and start talking and sharing my truth and sharing the truth to the world. The real shit, the real news, what's actually happening. That's what I want to do. Hey man, another thing that I'm tired of is token blacks, primarily from Africa, who don't have black ancestry in the United States, who don't have ancestry of slaves in their DNA. I can't stand the Africans who want to come in the country and be the token black guy for the whites and say, hey, let's have an awkward conversation with a black guy. Like, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Emmanuel Ancho types. Those Negroes are different. They not like us. You ain't got no... I'm at the point now at 40 years old, like, yo, I am not going to tolerate some shit. I'm not going to tolerate hearing some person who doesn't share the same culture, who doesn't understand, who, if your family, if you're no disrespect to Africans, listen, I know Africans too. They cool people. They got good traditions. They have great values. They grew up a lot different than how your traditional African American grows up, for obvious reasons. But I can't stand when the Africans, not African Americans, the Africans are put in these token positions that speak for all of us, because it marginalizes our message when it comes to this country, the inequality, etc. So having Emmanuel Ancho, those types in these types of positions is detrimental in some ways. And it's all contrived, you know. Executives know what the fuck they're doing. You know, let's put the friendly black guy up there who kind of share our values a little bit. I've seen it before. That's one thing that comes with being 40. You've seen some of this shit before. But it gets me right to segue and straight to the Emmanuel Ancho and Shady McCoy morning show that nobody asked for. Seriously, man, who the fuck asked for this? Who asked for Shady McCoy and Emmanuel Ancho morning show? That's supposed to go... Is this supposed to go head to head with First Take on FS1? On what planet? Like, come on, man. This goes back to what I said. It's cool to have these types of front-facing Negroes to go in front of the camera and present in a comfortable way that we see fit. And you know who we are. The we in that sentence that I'm talking about. It's ridiculous. You know, it's absolutely ridiculous. And I'm very interested to see how it does going forward. Who's going to appear on the show, because, you know, they did a kind of a musical chairs at FS1. They got rid of Skip Bayless, Undisputed. They just completely trashed the show, got rid of it. And I think maybe because Skip probably owns the IP of the show. So if he's no longer a part of the show, they probably can't use Undisputed anymore. Because other than that, I don't see why you would just completely scrap the show, like the name and everything. So they did that at FS1. And now they're putting in this new show with Emmanuel Ancho and Shady McCoy that, again, nobody asked for. When you talk about the Emmanuel Ancho types, they are very indicative of some of what we see as African Americans. You know, we see these guys who come in all buttoned up, who love white people and don't really share the same strife and struggle that we share because they didn't grow up like us.
If you miss 10 to 15, 20 games a year, you're going to add a couple extra years to your career. Just tell me you trying to get extra years and make money. Don't tell me basketball is too hard on your body. You're not playing in fucking Chuck Taylors. Come on, give me a fucking break.
Oh yeah, it's football season. Football season's finally here. I hate waiting for football season because it seems like an eternity when it comes around the corner. But now we're finally on that corner, and we open up the season tomorrow, Thursday night, Amazon Prime, of course, Bezos. The defending champions opening the season, ring ceremony and all. Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs will have a rematch against Lamar and the Baltimore Ravens. man, what a great way to start the season. So obviously this game means more to Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens because to them, they feel that they were the better team and should have won the game in Baltimore when they were home field, favorites. But it didn't happen that way because of that man, Patrick bleeping Mahomes. So they get a little bit of revenge tomorrow if they can go to Kansas City and beat the defending champions. So that's going to be a good game one out the gate. I want to just focus on the primetime games because, it's got a bunch of games. I'll end this with talking about the Cowboys, unfortunately, because I don't want to do a lot of Cowboys talk. I'm not even going to watch a lot of Cowboys games, but I've already gone through that before. I'll go through it another time as to why I'm not. The next primetime game will be the first Friday night game, and that'll be Green Bay versus Philadelphia. And this is going to be in Brazil. So with all the craziness that's going on in Brazil right now, I find that to be placed inconveniently. Green Bay versus Philly is definitely another good game as far as where these teams could potentially end up at the end of the season. A lot of people are picking Philadelphia to kind of make a late push into the playoffs. And a lot of people are, I wouldn't say surprisingly, but unsurprisingly, picking Green Bay to make a late push and potentially maybe make the Super Bowl. Philadelphia has to open the season better. They have to open and up with a lot of questions as far as structurally what's going on with their coaching staff and, a lot of pressure on Nick Sirianni this year to fix things up. When you lose 5 out of your last 6 games last year, when you had the best record, is a little disappointing. Not a little disappointing. It's a whole lot of disappointing. So Philadelphia, they got Saquon Barkley to fix their running game. Although their running game wasn't that bad with Swift last year, they just didn't run the ball that much. So we'll just see how that goes. We'll see if the running game picks up. We'll see if Jalen Hurts even runs the ball like he used to in the past because he doesn't run as much as he used to. So whether he's injured or not, who knows? But the fact is he's not doing as much running as he used to. So we'll see how that all pans out. The secondary is still the secondary. But yeah, as far as Green Bay is concerned, they got a lot of good stuff on that team. A lot of good young players. I watched it firsthand when they came into Dallas and destroyed my Dallas Cowboys. And quite frankly, put me into this, in the state that I'm in right now where I just have no faith in my team. You can thank Green Bay for that after the slacking that they gave my Cowboys. But again, I'll get to them Cowboys in a second. The last 2 really good primetime games that's coming on later in the weekend will be, obviously, you got the Sunday night game, the Rams versus Detroit in Detroit. So Detroit is another one of those darling teams that a lot of people are being prisoner of the moment and picking to make a long push into the Super Bowl, potentially. And you got the Los Angeles Rams, which is a lot of people's sleepers. They were sneaky good last year with, Puka Nacua, and then you got a healthy Cooper Kupp this year. They got some tricks up their sleeves for sure, especially with Sean McVay. He's always top 5 coach in the league, whether, regardless of who's on his roster. So you got to respect that. So I definitely expect big things from the Rams, and I expect Detroit to be Detroit. This is not the old Detroit. This is the new Detroit Lions. So I don't know if Detroit's going to make the Super Bowl. You got a lot of people picking Detroit and the Houston Texans going to the Super Bowl. I wrote this shit down too because I wanted to have a receipt, a mental note. And Eric Mangini, Greg Jennings, and Bill Simmons are all pretty much picking the same representatives of the Super Bowl. They're all picking the Lions versus the Texans. I don't know what kind of reefer these motherfuckers are smoking, but I don't see that at all. I don't see the Texans getting out of... who is the Texans supposed to beat? The Chiefs? The Ravens? I don't think they can beat any one of those teams. So, and then the Detroit Lions. Now, I will give the Lions pick. That one to me isn't too far-fetched. I don't think they'll make it to the Super Bowl, but they're at least able and capable of making the Super Bowl. Because then you got, I think they could beat San Francisco. Who, the teams that you put the Lions up against in the NFC is completely different from the teams that you're going to have to put the Texans up against, especially when that man in Arrowhead is still playing. So until I see something magnificent this year, I am nowhere near thinking about the Texans making the Super Bowl. Other than that, the Monday night game is going to be interesting too. You got the Jets versus the San Francisco 49ers. The Jets, a lot of people got a lot of hopes on the Jets, hoping and praying that the Jets do something this year, hoping and praying that Aaron Rodgers can make it out of at least one series without popping something. He has a lot to prove. They got the weapons. They got the defense. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. They're opening up at San Francisco on this Monday night. San Francisco has their little offseason things going on with Ayuk and Trent Williams. They just signed up for another 3 years. I think $80+ million. A lot of that is guaranteed, which Brock Purdy definitely needs for his protection. And, it's going to be an excellent game. These primetime games are really good. So, the first week is going to open up with a bang. I'm definitely going to be satisfied. Now, let's get to the Cowboys real quick. All right. Dallas opens the season up on the road against the Cleveland Browns. Not a good matchup. Not a good matchup. They got a pass rush in Cleveland. They got a legit defense over there. So, they got a good defensive line. Nah, not good. Pretty good to great defensive line with Myles Garrett over there. And then they got a decent secondary. So, that's not going to be an easy one for the Cowboys. Honestly, I don't see them winning that game. I see that being an L and opening the season up with a loss. The Cowboys have a lot of issues. The running back situation. Yeah, you got Dalvin Cook. So what? You got Ezekiel Elliott. I'm always going to love Zeke. I'm always going to be biased to Zeke because, man, he put it out on the line for this team. And he hasn't been the same running back since. But, you got the same old problems. You got, CeeDee Lamb back, locked up. Okay, great. But you still have other holes to fill that you didn't fill. So, Dak Prescott and, Mike McCarthy are both a lame duck coach and a lame duck quarterback. Both aren't on new deals right now. And you know what? Honestly, I'm really not upset with it at all. Honestly, I'm not letting Jerry off the hook because Jerry is horrible at what he's doing and Jerry should have sat his ass down years ago. But I'm not upset with the direction as far as Dak Prescott is concerned. Look, bro, anybody who's listened to me over the years know that I've been a huge Dak Prescott supporter, huge Dak Prescott defender. But even I got to my point. Even I got fed up. Even I had to say and come to the realization of, hey, man, you got to fucking show up. You can have 100 excuses. At the end of the day, you, the number one guy in the team, the man that's making all the money, the most money, you gotta will this team through. You gotta figure out a way. And he hasn't done it. And he's flamed out spectacularly in a lot of playoff games against top tier elite teams. Last year, they were 8-1 against decent teams. Playoff teams? Really good teams? They were 3-5. They were horrible. Under 500. Just like Bill Parcells once said, you are who your record says you are. And when it came to real competition, they were 3-5. That's what they were. And that's why Green Bay came into Dallas predictably and mopped the floor with them. I also did say during the year that the defense was grossly overrated, which proved to be the case as well when the Packers came marching in. So the defense got to show and prove too. Micah, you got to show and prove this year. It's time to just stop bumping your gums and actually start doing something. When you have 6 tackles and 1 sack total in your entire playoff career, bruh, it ain't good. It ain't good at all. that's my take so far. Those are the games that I'm really focused on this week. Obviously, I'm going to focus on some more games as far as the Chargers versus the Raiders. I want to see that. That's going to be Harbaugh's first game for the Chargers. That will be very interesting. So yeah, we have a really good season. Good week 1, loaded up. Can't wait to see. I'm definitely going to follow back here on the Voice Junkie podcast so y'all can stay in the loop. Or y'all can also stay in the loop on my YouTube channel, which is at Chuck West World. All right. Talk to y'all soon.